I think there's just a lot of need for this type of information. And this is the first of its kind. So it's best that we all kind of get on the same page. And I really, my hat's off to you guys for coming together as an industry to step forward and learn about this, because there's a lot of other media out there to compete with. And I think this is a great advantage that you're going to have. So as I said, you'll all have copies of this. So you don't have to take any notes. But let's definitely make this a dialogue. So here's what we're going to do. This is our agenda. We're going to do a Madison radio quiz. We're going to look at the strengths of audio. We're going to talk about audio ad effectiveness. And then we're also going to talk about digital audio growth as well. And we'll have Q&A at the end or throughout. We'll make it really, really informal. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is a quiz. And this is a quiz that WBEB in Philadelphia kind of pioneered. And they went to their NSM, traveled to a whole bunch of cities in the Northeast and the Midwest and the South, and asked 5 questions to media buyers that he was meeting with. He had us basically did a perceptual study of radio with a sample size of 30 buyers that spend money on his station. He asked them some very basic questions, and very few of them got the answers right. And it really started to put shine a light on what kind of perception problem we might have in the industry. And I give them credit for at least taking the bull by the horns. But the good news is, when I asked these same questions to people in Madison, a lot of them got the answers right. So hopefully it's better here. But first question is, what percent of 18 to 34-year-olds listen to radio each week in Madison? So the answers were given as a multiple choice question, and I asked the audience what the right number was. And of course, you all know the right answer is 90%, correct. Sadly, when the poll was conducted, most of the responses from the agencies were closer to 50%. They really don't have the same understanding that we all have. And I think we forget to sell the why radio part of our business. Sometimes we overlook it. We're so transactional focused. We're on to the next thing, but we've always got to be telling that story about how vibrant the medium is. So the second question was, what percent of 35 to 49-year-olds listen to radio in Madison? And these were the choices. And we all know that the answer is 95. Great. You're right, but they weren't always right. Most of the agency responses were close to 62%. So again, a lot of work to be done with young and old. And the last question I'll give you is, how much did TSL drop from 2011 to 2014 among young people in Madison? What percentage did it drop? Your choices are these, and the correct answer is, that's right, 9%. But agencies think that it's fallen off a cliff and declining 26% in that period of time. So again, we still have to keep telling that story of radio. So, at this point, I'm going to talk about what makes radio great, the facts behind these numbers to help set the stage. It's something that we all probably do and probably need to do more of, but here's the best of what we've got. So radio's alive and well. 244 million Americans listen to radio each week. Nielsen put out this report. It's the Audio Today report, and basically it says that 92% of everyone age 12 and older listens to radio each week. We make it available on Nielsen.com. You don't have to be a subscriber. We make it available to agencies, advertisers, TV stations, whoever. And we want to make sure that that message gets out. And we're doing our part, but we hope that you all will do your part as well. From a Madison perspective, audio reaches nearly everyone in Madison across all demos. The reach of radio for all of these popular buying demos, men, women, persons, anywhere from 85 to 95% reach in a week. So, that's where we still have a really strong story to tell for all types of demos that people are targeting. How about day parts? Madison radio has enormous reach in every day part. So you see in morning drive, 73% of Madison listens to morning drive radio each week. Even a higher number for PM drive. Even on weekends, you can still reach 2/3 of the audience or more with just weekend ads. So, I mean, there's tremendous reach in all of these areas. when you compare radio to other forms of media, there's just a strong story to tell here. Radio is the second most used platform today. And there are actually more television households in America, but look at how much higher radio is compared to cell phones, internet, social media, gaming, tablets. So, there's still, again, a strong story in comparison. When we talk about the usage of media, rather than looking at it from a reach perspective, let's look at how much time people are spending with media. This is a national view, and it shows that radio is strong in a very fragmented media world. People spend 37 hours watching TV a week. They spend 13 hours a week listening to the radio. And those 13 hours a week, that's even twice as much as they spend online. They spend 5.8 hours a week with the internet. Now, that might seem kind of weird because I'm sure all of us are online quite a bit, but when you think of the effectiveness of like banner ads and so on, radio's got a much larger footprint than what the internet is, and I'm sure you're up against that all the time. So essentially, the US adult consumer spends 65 hours with electronic media, TV, radio, online, mobile, per week, and 20% of those hours are spent with AM/FM radio. I don't know if everybody is devoting 20% of their ad budgets to radio, but based on this analysis, they should. But you hear a lot of these other things like, mobile video and gaming and, just web content, mobile, all that's occupying the headlines, but it's not really occupying a lot of our time with media like TV and radio does. When we look at 25, 54-year-olds and we look at the reach that radio has, and we compare that to other media, we see 94% of adults are tuning into AM/FM radio per week, but print, it's barely at 50% of reaching those adult audiences in a week. There was a time you can all remember when radio used to go up against newspaper quite a bit. That's clearly not the case anymore. When you look at broadcast and cable and you break them out separately, radio actually has higher reach than broadcast viewing or cable viewing. We were looking at them combined in the previous charts of how people use the medium of television, but when ad dollars are allocated locally, they tend to be put in a cable bucket or a TV bucket or a print bucket and so on. So really when you break them out separately, radio technically is a reach medium when it's often thought of as a frequency medium. The last one here, time spent on the internet. Because you're online and you have a broadband connection, you assume everyone does, but not necessarily. 85% of Madison or America has been on the internet in the past week. And again, not as high as radio at 94%. So again, just pointing out some of these basic facts helps us maintain the vibrancy of the medium. What about in-car? There's a lot of new dashboard gadgets coming online. Every new car has Bluetooth capability and all these things. Well, 78% of people are mostly listening to radio when they're in their car. It's the most common activity among all of these new gadgets and features. CDs are in the next spot. And you don't hear people raving about new things with CDs. Plugging in a smartphone, iPod, MP3 player in your dashboard, 30% of people do that. But you talk to somebody who does that and they just assume that the whole world does that. But they are a niche. They represent 30%. There is still a message here about the local live connection that AM/FM radio offers to people that they can't get with these other gadgets. That's the point. When we talk about Madison radio, it reaches people away from home while they're working, shopping, commuting. We've always known that. We forget to tell people about that, but it is a unique benefit of our industry. Twice as many people in Madison, twice as much listening in Madison is taking place out of home than in home. Do you know how much television viewing takes place out of home? We don't know. We don't measure it. We only measure it in home. It's 100% in-home usage at this point, and a little bit of out of home on a mobile device, but totally different for radio. That's why radio is the strongest pre-purchase medium. Radio is there is no medium better suited to radio than radio to reaching people right before they make a purchase. What this chart is saying that adults 18 to 49, 81.8% of them were exposed to radio prior to making a purchase within 2 hours. That's better than television, internet, mobile, magazines, newspapers, and so on. So again, another strong benefit of our medium is the recency. So when we look at when people are actually transacting, spending money, going to your clients' businesses and buying things, this is kind of a graph of when they're doing that throughout the day. Kind of looks like a camel's hump. And right at 1 o'clock, from 1 to 2 p.m., is the peak shopping time. Doesn't this kind of look like an hour-by-hour chart for radio? That's why it's so good at reaching people prior to making a purchase, because most of the listening takes place when people are shopping. So just to spell it all out for you, here's that same chart, and I put a little stripe there at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. That's the peak shopping time. Well, that's how people use radio. Makes sense, right? So you see a big jump there at 7 a.m. and it goes straight through to 5 o'clock. That's prime time for radio. You know what this is? That's prime time for TV. Totally like the opposite of radio. So, are you really reaching people when they're shopping with a TV ad? It's probably the next day that they go and buy it. How valuable is that compared to radio reaching them right before they make that purchase? So you can see how different TV on a browser using the internet, it takes place kind of at 9 a.m. straight through the workday and on into the evening. So kind of a combo of TV and radio. How about mobile? That blue stripe there is how we use our mobile devices, and it really is not exactly the same as radio. Even though radio is kind of the original out-of-home medium, mobile usage extends into the evening when people are at home as well. So again, each one of these media complement each other, and I think advertisers use a mix of all of these in their media, but I think radio needs to stand up and get counted for what it does best, and that's reach people throughout the day. So with that, we talked about some of the things that we've always known and loved about radio, and now we're going to get into some of the new things about audio ad effectiveness. You guys were pretty chatty before we began, but I haven't heard any questions, so I'm probably going too fast. Can we pause for any questions or comments so far? I see a hand over here. When I meant mobile in the previous charts and graphs, I meant using a tablet or using a smartphone. And that can get confusing with out of home. Yeah, sorry, should be more clear. Okay, any more? Should we press on? So this is the new ROI study that came out about radio. I'm going to break it down for anybody who may be skeptical or maybe wants a little bit of a deeper dive. But the way we explained it to the crowd prior to you was that this is a breakthrough collaboration between Nielson and various partners creating the first single source ROI tool for radio. And I think up to this point we've had case studies, we've had best practices, and I don't think we've had the same kind of view that this is going to provide. So what it's using is the same audio ratings data that you all transact on every day, the audio estimates. And it matches it up with consumer data. So that's automobile registrations, that's credit card purchasing habits, as well as like shopper data from like loyalty cards. So if you were to shop at a grocery store and you give them your little card or number, all of that, all the things that were in your basket, we've been tracking that. And now with this study, we're going to match it up to the media behavior of those same consumers. This is very different than the way we've always done research in Madison in the past. Like with Arbitron, we would sample a group of people in the market to represent everyone. But now we're using big data. We're using information from anyone in Madison who actually has a credit card or an automobile or one of these loyalty cards. It's actually some of you in this audience. So it's really much different than the sampling procedures we've done in the past. This is big data. So on this slide, I'm going to explain a little bit more about how we do that. So we take this Nielsen partner consumer data, like a loyalty card or this tracking data. We match it up with the listening estimates, and we also look at the commercial occurrence data from media monitors. So we look at when the ads ran. We send all that to a third party like Experian, who can do a third-party double-blind match where we preserve all of the privacy of the individual who bought Crest toothpaste we mask all the data and then match it up with a third party so that nobody knows exactly who we're talking about here. And then we do one-to-one matching on these demos. And we establish a control group who was not exposed to the ads, and then an exposed group who did see the ads. And we compare the results between them. And that's how essentially we get our analysis for ROI. So here's the hard numbers for you. This is a national study, and it was based on PPM markets like Milwaukee that have the meter in it. There's 72,000 PPMs across the country. And when we break that down into households, that comes out to about 32,000 households where we have radio listening data. Of those 32,000 households, about half of them also have these loyalty cards from their like grocery stores. So about 14,000 actual PPM households also have these loyalty cards. And that was the pool that we used to analyze. And from there, we looked at the purchasing habits of a couple of different types of products that they might have bought. And with any one of these individual products, we had sample sizes of anywhere from 3,000 to 9,000 to use in this analysis. So we have really deep sample sizes to query and slice and dice. This is not just based on 15 people in a focus group. It's big data. So this is essentially where this is the start of the information of where it all kind of came from. It was based on ad campaigns that ran May 17th through September 21st of last year, about a 5-month span. We looked at a variety of different consumer packaged goods along with a retailer, and you can see that their ad spend varied greatly. We had some brands spending as little as $800,000 on their ad campaign, and some spending as much as $25 million. So a good variety here of the types of ad campaigns that you'd see. And as you can see, the reach that they each achieved over 5 months, some of them were as low as reaching 11% of the market, or some were almost as high as 90%. So these were campaigns of all sizes. And this is essentially the report card that we kind of got back from them, from the data. So I'll just kind of focus on this soft drink category first to explain the columns of information. So the first soft drink specific brand was a reach of about 20% that their campaign achieved, that they were setting out for, 65 GRPs, and it gave them about a 3 frequency. Pretty light schedule. Whereas there were 2 other soft drink campaigns that had a more robust campaign, reaching about half their markets, 400 and some GRPs, and a much higher frequency of an 8. So again, you can imagine different results. But as you see on the right there, under that orange kind of header, this is the delivery that they achieved of people that actually bought their products. Think of it like a post, but actually based on people in these markets with loyalty cards that actually bought those soft drinks at those grocery stores or wherever. And you can see that it actually achieved higher reach and higher GRPs in that category specific delivery. So those indices of 103, 102, 105, even though the buys were put together and bought against 18 to 49 or 25-54, they actually were able to achieve success with people who actually bought the product. Not something that we have seen before, been able to track before. And I'll just bring up the rest of the list of the other advertisers just so you can see that campaigns big or campaigns that are small, they all achieved the results. You know, you can see that they over-indexed for a lot of these categories of actually reaching people that bought their products. The only exception there was that beer category where they over-indexed for reach, but they didn't index as high with GRPs. So again, there's so much in the execution that's a big variable here. But the bottom line is, radio delivered a 6-to-1 ROI for the investment that's made versus the return in purchasing product, moving product for those advertisers. Advertisers achieved over $6 of incremental sales for every $1 spent on radio. So that message is, you know, just don't take my word for it. I mean, that's just the headline. We're going to go into detail on it. And I don't know, some of you may have seen this one. This is really kind of where it breaks down. Some retailers, some advertisers got humongous returns, others not so much. As you can see here, this retail brand with 2 different types of campaigns here, one of them got an 11-time return on their investment. Another one got 23 times the return on their investment in radio. Those were extreme examples, but those were the ones that spent significantly, heavy campaigns. A lot of the other ones here, these snacks, these soft drinks, and so on, these consumer goods packaged goods categories that typically don't spend a lot in radio, they even saw some very respectable returns. When you average them all together, you get about a 6-to-1 return. But let's even focus in on the smallest return here, soft drink B, $1.38 return for every dollar spent. It's still a positive return. They still got 38 cents out of every dollar they spent returned back to them in profit, and despite even paying for their entire ad campaign. So every one of these cases was a positive return on investment. Nobody lost money in their use of radio. I mean, if you think of this as like a return of a basket of stocks in your retirement portfolio, a 6-fold return on your investment, I'd be retired by now if that were me. But you know, some do better than others. Why do they do better than others? Anybody know? Why did some score so high and some so low? The offer, exactly. The execution, depending on what's offered in the ad or what the advertiser brings to the table, is going to have a major impact on the bang they get for their buck. So I think it's important for all of us to kind of point out how, you know, there's a lot that we have control over in our execution, and that radio is going to be that megaphone that's going to get your message out, but it's up to you to determine how good that message is going to be. And this is an example of what you can expect. But nevertheless, the bottom line is everybody wins here. Everybody is making a good investment with their radio dollars. Another way of saying it, radio is very efficient, or it's very cost effective, but as you can see with these national examples, very positive story for radio. So these are examples of people purchasing things. This is another case study with radio, another ROI study that didn't require anybody to purchase anything. So a lot of people use radio for a variety of different communication goals. And this is an example where there was a cable network that was trying to get people to watch more of their programs, and they turned to radio. It was like the premiere of a certain new show. And radio demonstrated a 16% conversion rate for those promos. What that means is that we looked at the people that were exposed to the radio campaign from this national advertiser, and we looked at those who were not exposed. Those who were not exposed, they tuned in X amount. Those that were exposed, they tuned in 16% higher than those who weren't. So that means that there was a 16% conversion rate, meaning that radio can lift the viewership for that program 16%. So at least we can quantify it now. We know that radio works, we just don't know how much. In this example, it didn't actually require anybody to go to a store and purchase something. All it was asking them to do was change the channel, and it was 16% effective. I mean, I should say it provided a 16% lift. When you think of other media like direct mail with a 1% success rate, another measure of ROI. And here was question? Yeah, so I didn't mention this, but I mean, there's a lot of noise in these campaigns, right? These consumer packaged goods brands, I'm sure we all know them, but they don't just use radio. They use TV, they use internet, they use coupons, just a whole bunch of things. But we can filter out all that noise because we compare those who were exposed to radio to those who were not. So we're really only just comparing A to B here, and we're measuring the difference between A to B. And the only variable that was different is whether they listened to radio or not, whether they were exposed to the ads. And as we pointed out in the previous slides, some of these brands ran very robust campaigns and others did not. And as you know, there's not really a lot of CPG advertisers that use radio. So this was meant as a wake-up call to them to say, listen, here's an example of how radio works. Imagine how good it would be if you spent like this retailer did. You'd really get some good results. But this is the first study of its kind, very positive, enough to hopefully get a dialogue started to open up more opportunities.
CPG means?
Oh, consumer packaged goods. Crest toothpaste, deodorant, soft drinks, candy bars. Hoping to try to grow the pie for radio. with new types of advertisers. Okay, so we had talked about an example with CPG, consumer packaged goods. We talked about an example with media. This was another kind of use of radio about getting people to come back to retail. This big box retailer did a study where they looked at people who visited their store, but they wanted to get them to come back for a second visit. And they showed that radio increased retention by as much as 11% and was able to get repeat customers to come back. Again, another strength of radio about motivating people to come to a store. Again, just trying to put an investment on that, and it showed an 11% increase. So again, this was not something that required someone to actually purchase something. This was about getting them to come back to the store. And again, we did that through, and I should make a point that, the whole point of this type of study is the type of stuff that's happening on internet. People are being able to say, well, I spend a lot of money on internet because I know where it goes. I know what kind of response I get from my ads. With broadcast, I don't really know that. Well, now we're starting to be able to connect the dots here and give them an idea of exactly what happened with their ad campaign. Another thing that we saw with this study is that radio delivers powerful sales lift when heard within a few days of exposure. And this speaks to the recency of the message and how it resonates so quickly with that out-of-home shopping audience. So you see the vertical axis there on the left is the sales lift, the benefit that the advertiser got from the ad. And along the bottom here is time, is days of the week, or should I say days of the month. So you've got 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks out. So an ad delivered the day before purchase increases the brand share by 9%, while messages delivered 28 days prior to purchase increase the share by 3%. So if you see that steep, sharp slope in the line in the first week, that's when the ads are the most effective for the advertiser, closest to point of purchase. The further out that the ad is versus when they actually purchase the product, there's really not as much bang for the buck. So that's really kind of a scope of showing how the most effective ads for radio are the ones that are acted upon within a couple days. So key takeaways from these studies: radio delivers a strong payback, over 6 times the payback to CPM. The cost of the investment of radio has been returned 6-fold in these examples. Most radio campaigns would have delivered much higher response if they had much higher reach and GRPs. That was the point I was making with these soft drink or candy bar advertisers. They really only dipped their toe in the water and they were able to get some positive results, but they could have been higher. Radio delivers a strong impact close to purchase. The closer the exposure is to purchase, the higher the response. So those are the key themes from what we've seen so far, and hopefully there'll be more studies in the future. So with that, we'll kind of jump into the last area about the growth of digital audio, but are there any other questions I could address on the ROI studies? All right. So the growth of digital audio. When we take a look at the radio media audio landscape, 50 years ago we had AM, we had FM, and we had vinyl. That's how complex the world was then. In the last 10 years, it's gone through a lot of changes. We've got digital audio, we've got AM, FM radio, we've got Sirius and XM, digital music, right? CDs and MP3s. There's a lot of change that took place in recorded music at that time. In the last 5 years, things have completely exploded. We've got streaming, we've got smartphones, HD radio, tablets, music apps, cloud storage. Now when you buy a song on Amazon, you don't actually download it. It actually goes into a locker, a cloud storage locker. So the concept of actually buying music is not really there anymore. You're just renting it. So our audio entertainment entertainment choices have changed dramatically. But AM, FM radio remains the dominant source of music listening. This is how people spend their time with audio entertainment. This is a study that was done last year, the Music 360 study. It's an online survey of about a couple thousand people, and it asked the specific question was, In a typical week, which of the following do you use to listen to music or follow musicians that you like? AM/FM radio, number 1. CDs, number 2, despite the fact that they are kind of under pressure and maybe not as in vogue as it was. Streaming radio services, 30%. You know, you hear so much about all the new streaming audio options out there and that they're taking the world by storm. They're not there yet, but they're growing. iTunes, other recorded music, digital music, still, you know, kicking tapes and records in the behind, but still, a lot of this disruption is happening with the audio entertainment that we have in our own music libraries. There's still a connection with AM/FM radio at the human level, at the live and local level that people still have with radio that they don't get elsewhere. And I think that's an enduring quality. The use of streaming audio has exploded on mobile. When we look at the types of things we do with our mobile devices, our smartphones, our tablets, streaming audio was popular with about 5% of the people that use those devices, and now about 29% of those devices are using streaming audio. And you can see that that was the biggest growth category among all these things that we do with our streaming, with our tablets and smartphones, up 480% from 2008. In fact, all of these things have grown. The usage of these types of things on smartphones has just increased over the last 5 years. The only thing that has decreased is ringtone downloads, kind of a thing of the past. So let's kind of look at how important audio is to the mobile environment. And when we talk about local streaming, and we focus specifically on local radio stations that are listened to online, streaming of your types of stations, you can see that that's been growing year over year. On average, local streams reach about 20% of the market each month, and that's been growing since 2011. And when we look at all forms of streaming, that would be internet radio as well as streams of local AM/FM radio stations, we see the number approaching 30% reach in a market in a given month. So definitely a growing trend. But to keep it all in perspective, let's look at the weekly reach of AM/FM radio and compare it to something like satellite radio. Big difference. We're talking about 18 to 34-year-olds here. Radio reaches 94% of them a week. Satellite radio reaches 11% of them a week. Big difference in a medium that's been around 50 years versus one that's been around 10 years. One that's free, one that costs money. How about on the right side here? Pandora, iHeart, and Spotify. You look at how many people have been exposed to them within a month, 18 to 34. You see that number is 35% for Pandora. I think a lot of the agencies and advertisers we come across think that that number is close to 94. It's not. It's 35% in a month. A lot of focus gets paid to Pandora, but I wanted to kind of point out some things that might shock you or not. This is a picture of 18 to 34-year-olds who use Pandora. Well, guess what? 93% of those Pandora users, they also listen to AM/FM radio. It's not either or. How about 25-54? 94% of adult Pandora users are also using AM/FM radio. Pandora would rather paint a picture that, that they're stealing radio listeners away, but really only about 6 or 7% of their audience just doesn't listen to radio. 94% does. Another interesting fact that I don't know if people realize, when we look at adults 18 to 34, we break them up into two columns here, two groups, the Pandora users and the non-Pandora users. Guess what? Pandora users spend an hour and 43 minutes a day listening to AM/FM radio. Non-Pandora users spend an hour and 41 minutes a day listening to radio. So not only does the Pandora user also listen to radio, they listen to more radio per day. 2 minutes more, but it's the opposite of what you might think. How about 25-54? The Pandora user spends an hour and 51 minutes a day with radio, and the non-Pandora user spends about 3 minutes less per day with radio. So really, to tie it all together, when we compare online and offline radio, and we look at it trended over the last 10 years, these orange bars here represent the weekly reach of broadcast radio. It was 229 million people that were listening to AM/FM radio in 2005. In 2014, that number has risen to 244 million listeners per week. That's a 7% increase in the radio audience in the last 10 years. Over that same time period, streaming audio has exploded. It went from 5 million users a month to 55 million users a month. That was an 11-fold increase over that same period of time, yet broadcast radio grew 7% at the same time. It's not an either-or equation. It's an enhancement. Okay, question? A lot of the stuff that we talked about today is going to make its way into some changes in the methodology at some point. And I think we have a new approach on how we're going to be measuring streaming. And it has a lot to do with the way that this ROI study was conducted, where we match up big data sources so that we have the robust samples that allow us to get the numbers in Madison, not just nationally. And I think it's only a matter of time before you have better tools to manage those types of things. Because the way that we sample a handful of people in the market, it's not really going to translate well for a lot of these new media and all this fragmentation that's going on. So I think there's a lot that we could talk about that, but it's just not here yet. So I wanted to at least focus on what is here and the story we have to tell, and it's a good one. So I think there's a lot that we can do with it for now. More questions? I have an answer for you. It's on a slide, and I excluded it from this presentation, but I just looked at it last night. So follow me with this one. This slide right here is from, stand by, okay, this one. This is from the Music 360 study. It looks at the usage of recorded media, streaming media, and offline media like AM/FM radio. They've done this study the last couple of years. I've looked at this study from last year to this year, and do you know which one of these bars went down from last year to this year? With all the growth of streaming and so on? CDs. It's not a pure connection between the use of Pandora and the disuse of CDs, but you can put two and two together because it's such a similar experience, right? Pandora gives you pretty close to an on-demand experience like you would when you grab a CD from your own collection. It has a lot more in common with your own music collection than it does with your favorite personality on the radio. So it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot of change there. The headline from this Music 360 study, you can read it on Nielson.com, is that streaming is growing and buying music is declining. So that's more of an A to B shift between the way people are consuming their favorite music, but it's really not having that same kind of effect on AM/FM radio. But we still don't have the pure connection that you're looking for, the one-to-one, like matching up a Pandora user and tracking their radio listening habits. We're not there yet, but it's coming. Okay, good questions. More? All right, I'm going to summarize. Maybe you'll think of a few more. So, of course, I directed the previous group to send any questions that they have to Ed, Kurt, and Joe. They told me they've already gotten a couple requests for some copies of the information or some follow-up. But I did tell them in the last group that if you do have questions on this type of ROI and how to really execute an effective radio ad campaign, to speak to all of you. You're the experts. You deal with people who have successful and non-successful campaigns. You know what works, what doesn't. You understand what your listeners' hot buttons are. You know the way to give them the ads they're going to generate the sales. So you have a lot more control in this than I do. But at least I gave people at least something to think about and to kind of measure themselves against when they look at the type of ROI they get with your own campaigns that you sell to them. So in a recap here, the leading source of audio entertainment continues to be AM/FM radio. Wanted to make sure that I got that in there. But really, the usage of AM/FM radio is strong across all demos. In a fragmented world, radio has become a reach medium. And that means it's hopefully going to be thought of first, rather than just as an add-on as a frequency medium. It's really become a reach medium in this fragmented environment. Radio is the strongest pre-purchase medium, and we can't say that enough. Radio delivers a strong payback, over 6 times the ROI, and no two radio campaigns are alike. Execution has a major impact on the radio investment with radio. It's the offer. It's the deal that they bring to the table. It's not all on radio's shoulders. And listeners are engaging with radio on mobile more and more each year. And finally, streaming audio complements AM/FM radio, like we saw on the last slides. It's not an either-or type of equation. Okay, any more questions? All right, thank you for your time.